afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Commuter Safari,
Commuter
episode
Safari.
number 2.
Wow.
So, we got something interesting lined up today. So, we ran across this very interesting story while doing some research on some other stuff. But, Matthias, you're going to have to help me out here with the pronunciation here, because what is this thing called? It's the Pfeilstorch.
Der Pfeilstorch. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Pfeil. Pfeil means arrow, the arrow. And well, storch and stork is very, very similar. But
It's very
the interesting thing,
explainable.
and why it's super exciting for me, and we'll get to this later, because this is very, very close related with my home. But I think Arthur is going to explain that.
Okay, so in order to get back, in order to understand what makes this particular arrow stork so interesting, we need to go back to the discovery of the stork in 1822, and I find it very interesting that if I look at my notes here, that it's the stork team. We could almost write a poem about this thing.
Okay.
Because it is a Pfeilstorch that was studied by Heinrich Gustav Florck.
Oh.
And it is currently in the zoological exhibition at the University of Rostock.
Yes.
So
dear alma mater.
So I'm sure we could put a poem together there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so
but I'm not going to try and entertain that.
So I'm gonna when we get to the interesting part, I'll put an image on the screen of the stork. But the stork was discovered in 1822, and it was actually discovered in Mecklenburg in Germany.
Yes, Mecklenburg is one of the states of Germany.
Okay, so we don't. So I thought it was a town.
No, Mecklenburg is a state, and Rostock actually is the capital, or was the capital of that state.
Okay, because you see that's where it gets interesting. Why we need to talk about these things, because when you read the information, they say the stork was discovered in 1822 and caused a stir amongst the townspeople of Mecklenburg.
Well, you have to see Mecklenburg is probably as densely populated as the Northern Cape. So not at all.
So that's just slightly better populated than Alaska.
Yes, exactly. So just for reference, so from we have 16 federal states in Germany. Size-wise, Mecklenburg is number 5, but we have less inhabitants than the city of Hamburg. So,
fantastic!
To give you the reference there.
Okay, so, but in any case, so in 1822, this stork arrives there, and it's discovered by the people, and it's handed over to this Heinrich Gustav Florck, who was an ornithologist at the time. And what makes the stork interesting is it is a white stork, but he's wearing an interesting piece of jewelry. So I'll put the image up right here, and that piece of jewelry is an arrow that basically goes from the chest bone up through the neck, out next to the head. And this stork arrived like that on its migration from Africa. Now, what's interesting and what I find very interesting is up until 1822, the ornithologist had no concept of the migration of birds. So some of the theories that was advanced, which I really enjoyed, was one person said that because of migration, so during summertime and wintertime, you see different species of birds. So the one scientist wrote a paper and he said he thinks that the birds morph. So storks change to sparrows.
Yeah, sure.
During the season, and that basically that explained why some species were only seen certain parts of the year, and other species were only seen because they weren't really different species in his opinion. They were the same birds. They just looked differently at different times of the year, um, which I found very interesting. And then the other theory that was put forward, and I can't find out who did this. I would love to make this guy famous because this is the coolest theory I ever heard. Is that his theory was he clearly saw that the different species of birds were different species, so it couldn't be the morphing thing. So he proposed that at certain times of the year the birds relocate to the moon.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, it was the early 19th, late 18th century. You know, I mean, in Europe we thought it was a good idea to decapitate kings at that time. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, what people need to understand is our scientific knowledge is actually, and our understanding of nature is actually growing exponentially.
Yes.
So 100 years ago or 200 years ago, we knew a tenth of what we know today.
Yeah, if at all.
Um, and I just want to point out the reason why I like that theory about them going to the moon is there were astronomers that actually suggested that the dark spots across Mars that move across Mars, that we now know is sandstorms and can be ice sheets in certain places. Um, there were scientists that thought that was insects, swarms of insects migrating across the surface of the planet.
I mean, it's not that bad of an observation, right?
Well, at a stage, there is a point where a letter where Einstein put forward the theory that the shadows on the moon might be caused by flocks of migrating insects.
No, you see.
So, it just to puts into perspective how much we actually knew of the natural world
Yes.
back in those days. But in any case, so the reason why this stork becomes very famous is because what Flork did is he took more interest in the arrow than in the bird because he didn't recognize the arrow.
Yeah.
And so when he started talking to different archaeologists and paleontologists and Egyptologists. And what they found is that specific type of arrow, it comes from the Upper Nile region. There is a specific tribe that makes those arrows. And so that's how he put together the idea that bird had spent the winter in Africa. And some African hunted it and did a poor job of it. And the bird with his neck brace just it came summertime, he just migrated back to Germany.
Probably it was done during migration when they tried to hunt it, right?
Well, it could be if you look at the photo, and once again it's up here.
Yep.
you could actually see how it might be a bit uncomfortable for the bird, but if it missed all the major vertebrae in the bone, it would basically be like having a neck brace on.
Yeah, it was like
Um,
pretty much like this, no?
yeah, it
Just
went
annoying.
in the chest, down the side of the neck, and stuck out next to his head like an aerial. Looked like a radio control plane for a while.
An early piercing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that gives a whole new level, meaning to the word piercing.
Yeah. Well. Okay, but so and that means at that point in time they started to understand. Okay, that bird comes from Africa.
Yes, and that's when. But now here's the interesting part. That's when it became widely published in the West that birds migrate and that we've got migratory birds. What is interesting is that um, Henry Baker Tristram, when he went to Africa a couple of years later, he figured out that the the local African tribes had figured out migration and knew exactly what the birds were doing all the time, all the while. Because they would say to him, they explained to him that he was talking to them that he was looking for a certain species of swallow, and
Okay.
they explained to him that if you want to see those swallows at this time of year, you have to go to Timbuktu. Because this time of year they are in Timbuktu, the other times of year they are here where we are.
Wow.
So, but now, important to note is that even though the locals have figured out this migration, that was on a very small scale.
Yeah.
That's on the scale of birds moving from Cape Town to Kruger, from Kruger to Cape Town.
Okay.
Nobody had an idea that birds would actually travel to another continent.
I mean,
So
if you think about it, it's like, what is it, 10,000 kilometers? Huh?
yeah, so and then this whole discovery led us down a path, and so by the end of the 19th century, we had figured stuff out, like for instance that that birds at night, that some migratory birds migrate mainly at night, and that
Oh.
they produce a specific type of call to keep the flocks together. So that was the catalyst to start the studies of migratory birds. So, but interestingly, researchers identified in 1979 the 45 different African bird species that wintered in Southeast Africa and then moved into the region of Germany. So that's what I mean by our knowledge expands exponentially, because if you notice, so we have the aha moment when the barbecue ready stork arrived in Germany. We have the epiphany that birds migrate, and it's only in 1979,
150 years later,
that we actually get proper data and start figuring out how many species are going where and where are all these birds going. So, but that is most probably the most interesting bird that came out of Africa and ties Africa and Europe together. The Pfeilstorch. I don't understand how you.
Pfeilstorch.
Yeah,
How
but
do
why
you
do
say
they
fire? How do you say arrow in Afrikaans?
fail?
Yeah, you see, fire.
Yeah, but then why do you put the F next to the P?
Don't ask me.
That makes a sound. Pfeilstorch.
Yeah, pretty much so. Yeah, I don't know why they did that. I think this was in the 15th or 16th century when they decided they do funny things with our language.
Okay, but just to correct, it's at the University of Rostock now.
Rostock, yes.
Okay, fantastic. So if you are going on holiday to Germany, or you happen to pass through, I don't know if that zoological collection is open to the public though.
It is available as far as I can tell. It's basically it's in the I think as far as I understand it is in the main building. And Rostock is a very nice city. I mean, I have to say that I was born there and grew up there. It's in the very north of Germany. It's like 200 kilometers north of Berlin, and we have a very beautiful beach. And the most important thing, no tides.
Okay, no. Now I'm lost. How do you have no tides on the beach?
Because it's the Baltic Sea, and the only connection to the North Sea is the Skagerrak and Kattegat. And that
so
just
in
doesn't
other
allow.
words, it's just a really, really big salty dam.
Pretty much so. It's a kind of a, how do you say, interior sea, if you will.
Okay, so to put it into perspective, let's stay naturalistic, accurate, yeah. So it is definitely a sea, not an ocean.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an inland sea.
Exactly. So it is, you have the Atlantic Ocean, you have the North Sea, and then you have basically the peninsula of Denmark and Norway. And there you have the little opening called Skagerrak and Kattegat. That's kind of a pretty much like the Strait of Gibraltar, that size. And that connects the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. And that's the only thing. And the Baltic Sea obviously is currently is becoming in recent political events very famous, but we are not going to talk about that.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about politics here. What I am going to mention though is I'm talking about seas. I can't resist using this phrase. Is that this is a very interesting story from the time when the Dead Sea still just had a cold.
What was that?
This is a very interesting story from a time that is so long ago. The Dead Sea just had a cold when this bird was discovered.
Okay. Okay.
No,
I
just
don't
joking.
know that saying, but
Yeah, it's almost like the one that says, "I laughed so hard I fell off my dinosaur."
Okay. Yeah. When rubber boots were still made of wood, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Although I think that would go down better in the Netherlands, but okay.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so just to recap. So 1822, the stork is discovered. It's just a little bit of info. The arrow is actually 30 inches long.
50 inches means, what is it, 75 centimeters, huh?
Yes. Close
Okay.
to there. About 2.5 centimeters per inch.
And that's, yeah, pretty much, huh? It's a
Yeah.
long arrow.
That's a massive arrow. So it's a so there we go. It's probably the most interesting bird ever to leave Africa.
And only by that science actually started to understand and discover that birds migrate.
Yes, because then later on, this sorry, I need to go back to my notes to pronounce this guy's name.
Mr. Flork?
Yeah, Mr. Flork. He then started putting out messages to all the naturalists, and over time, they actually found another 45 birds.
Okay.
Of
within the
various
range
different... of various
150
different
years.
species, but that all had either arrows or arrow tips or something that was
Okay.
that from failed hunts in Africa that they survived. But the arrow stork was the one that
The first thing.
flipped the switch and started this whole thing. And you know, we need to put it into perspective. You know, we keep on saying about how much we've learned in a short time, and that knowledge is expanding exponentially. You know, what you must remember is, if you look at like the whole situation with Darwin and the theory of evolution.
All right, that was only
Wait,
after that, no?
yes, but Darwin had to do everything by mail,
Yes.
and the mail was being taken by a horse-drawn carriage, not even a train or something.
Yes.
So if you listen to Bill Bryson's book, A Small History of Nearly Everything, he's got a very good explanation of Darwin and the theory of evolution and whatnot. And from the time that
Okay.
Darwin published The Origin of Species till the time that they actually had a debate and he got a chance to present it to the Royal Zoological Society,
Yes.
was like 2 years.
Wow.
Because he would publish the books would go out, and then everybody starts writing him letters, and the letter takes like 2-3 months to arrive.
Yes.
And then he replies with a letter, and eventually everybody said, okay, whoa. Sorry, let's just all get together in London and just present your theory, because waiting 3 months for an answer every time I've got a question is not gonna
This
isn't
is
gonna do
why
it.
I think, I mean, this is, if you think about it, the way science works today, it's on the one hand side, it's definitely a good thing. So you have a much quicker exchange. You can grab your phone and stuff like that. But you also have obviously then the possibility of using internet and stuff like that. But I
Yeah,
think
but
even there, especially now, we have to be much more careful with how we do these things, because everybody can just, in a glimpse of a second, write a comment
yes,
without even reflecting it.
and besides that, we also now have that added layer that back in the 1800s, there were no real professional scientists. You know, people were doing this as a hobby, and they had their sideline businesses and whatnot. Today,
Also
we've
true.
got so many industries involved in funding science that,
Also true. Yeah.
you know, it's like I said on one of the live sessions the other night. You know, I could probably find you somebody with a PhD now that will tell you that we need to stop using all forms of fossil fuel and revert to green energy now, because it's going to destroy the planet. I'll find you 20 of those now by just sending an email. We'll also find 15 or 20 scientists with PhDs who will tell you the exact opposite.
Yes.
And I think there's nothing sums that more up than the story of Claire Patterson and the discovery of lead.
Okay.
Because he was trying to figure out how old the Earth is by measuring the
Okay.
decay of lead isotopes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then he found out that all his samples are wildly contaminated. And finally, he figured out it's because of the lead in leaded gasoline, that there's so much lead in the atmosphere that everything is contaminated.
Oh, okay.
And then he took his data and he said, okay, this is it. And this is how lead poisoning is bad and whatnot and whatnot. And the whole thing started off when the petrochemical companies went and hired scientists
Yeah.
to go stand in court and say, no, but Patterson is wrong. It is the levels of lead he's talking about is absolutely normal. There is nothing wrong with that amount of lead in the atmosphere.
You know, I mean, that's like the same thing, like the study that said no, smoking is not dangerous for your health, and it's funded by the Marlboro Foundation, something like that.
Exactly, it's exactly the same thing. So it's a you have to be very, very careful. But I think next time we might want to dive into that lead story a bit more.
It'll be interesting. You know?
Okay.
Even though it's not so much related to wildlife, but yeah, people just guys, let us just know if you're interested in these kind of things. It's widely related, obviously, to nature.
Well, I think the next episode is either that or it's the Njombe Pride. Either one of the two.
Sounds interesting too. That sounds interesting too.
Yeah, I think we can do the Njombe Pride. You know, let's get people off this Ghost in the Darkness bandwagon and tell them about real man-eating lions.
That makes a good night story, huh?
Yeah, that's the story you have to listen in the dark.
Around the campfire.
Yeah, while you've got 100 meters to walk to your cabin in an unfenced camp.
Yep.
All righty.
Like some kanda.
A little bit. We had the lions roaring here last night again.
Yeah. So let us know what you think about these kind of stories. Have you heard of this Pfeilstorch already? Let us know what you think about these kind of scientific advances.